Hola, and welcome to Vive Nutrition Radio, the first ever Spanglish podcast where you will hear interviews with the top minds in nutrition, performance, fitness, and health in both English and Spanish. Here is your host, expert registered dietitian, Dezi Abeyta, on a mission to help you take your nutrition to the next level. Hope you're ready for this. Let's dive right in.
Welcome to the CHIT CHAT series. This started off as part of Vive Nutrition Radio. This started off with me and Antonio. I was procrastinated on the podcast for the longest time, but we're back at it. And we decided to join two new fresh blood into the podcast. So we have Dezi and two obviously joining us today, and also Nate Diaz, also Latino dietitians. Crushing it at the game, and we are here to just to kind of chit chat about current situations, nutrition, performance, fitness, health, COVID-19 and whatnot. So welcome guys to the Chit Chat series. Super excited to have you on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man, 100%. Let's do it.
Sweet.
We just have to figure out how to talk because there's four of us. So it's always like we all look at each other like, is someone going to talk first, or how do we go about this?
Who goes next? It's all good. This is all conversational. So I guess like we talked about the topic today. Obviously, it's kind of trending right now in the world. COVID-19. So how are you guys like holding off in this like self-quarantine? Like, what are your statuses? I know like Nate and Antonio right now, they're like literally 30 minutes away from me. And Dezi, you're on the other side of the United States. So how's like your quarantine going so far?
Man, I would say not a whole lot has changed. As you guys know, we work remote, so nothing's changed on my end. I mean, my wife is a healthcare worker, so she's like working double and triple. And so the only change without school is just me literally scheduling time to make sure that I devote to my passions and my business. And then after 1 or 2 p.m., I'm just on dad alert. So I will be 100% transparent. My 4-year-old is kicking my ass.
Yeah, because your wife is obviously working. Yeah, I had our other dietitian, Dana, her husband, I think he's a public health worker, and he works in some place like for the federal government. They're pushing like 12-hour shifts, like 12 to 13 hours shifts on a daily basis. And when it's like one of those like essential businesses that needs to remain open because literally it's the government. So yeah, it's crazy. What about you, Nate? You just got here from Boston?
Yeah, luckily, I mean, they ended up shutting down pretty much all of Boston probably the day or two after I left. So I just got out, and actually I got a video yesterday. It was absolutely just dropping down the snow yesterday. So I was like, I'm sitting here, it's 85 and sunny, so I'm feeling good.
Your wife came down too, or she stayed up there?
But yeah, so my wife came down here as well. She's finishing up dental school, she might be the actually first class ever in dental school history to not have a graduation. So that's still kind of up in the air right now.
Damn.
So eventually she'll obviously still graduate, but she may not have a ceremony, which is a bummer, but we can't really do anything about that. So, yeah. But no, man, we're good. We're good. We're good to be back here in Florida.
Awesome. So what do we want to talk about today, boys?
That's fine. Just skip over me. Nothing new there. That's great. As always, I appreciate you putting on the Chit Chat series. And
people know who you are.
Especially because Dezi just stopped and coughed. So he just spread COVID-19 through the Chit Chat series. So
wait, hold on. Did you hear that audio?
No.
Okay, cool. All right. Dude, I'm a professional, all right? Motherfucker, I muted it.
It's okay. I'm handling it on this. Thank you for asking. I appreciate you.
Antonio, how are you, bro?
I'm great. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. I feel like I'm in great health.
Antonio gets a little, he gets a little, sensitive sometimes.
The FOMO is killing him right now. Yeah. I mean, everyone working from home. My wife is working from home, so I'm trying to figure out how she understands that I work from home, and she works from home now. So it's interesting to see her be like, let's take a nap. And I'm like, I can't. I have things to work on in my business.
Well, actually, right? That's a good point. I think we could probably start talking about that because there's so many people in the whole entire country right now, literally kind of like moving and transitioning into working from home. And some of us are actually used to it. And I think, like Antonio, Dezi, you, and I probably you, Nate, too, as well. I think you just left your job. So we're we've been doing this for like a year. So being home, it's kind of like a second nature thing for us. But now that we have obviously spouses or family members now being at home, how are you guys handling the situation? You know, like, because I think, and for people listening to this, you know, I'm sure there's families that kind of going crazy of seeing each other every single day for 24 hours a day. So what kind of insights can you maybe give? Maybe you, Antonio, that obviously your wife is actually coming in into stuff.
Thank you for including me. I'm glad I brought up a great point that we should start off on. Interesting.
Hey, can you guys please just continue this? Like, since I met the two of you, it is such an amazing.
It's like a love-hate relationship.
Yeah, it's an amazing collaboration where Andres will just forget about Tony, and then Tony gets so mad. This has been since I met you guys. I just want this to continue. It's
but then he gets mad when I interrupt him. So it's like I can't win.
I also think it's pretty methodical too, because you do, and I notice it, and I'm always just right away on these video chats. I look at Tony to see, like, all right, is he gonna get pissed? Yeah, he's pissed.
I can't win, so I'm just gonna let him talk and see how.
So working from home, when we first started, we didn't have a schedule, right? It's really trying to understand that now that we've been doing this for a year, we have a schedule. We know what some of our important tasks we need to do. We have client calls on certain days. We have times to do lives with people. But having my wife here now, it's different because she has a different work. She does like 9 to 5. So when she would come home, I would schedule time to be with her. Like, we'd have dinner together. But now that she's at home a lot more, she has more time to take breaks. She has more time to do work at home. And she's like, oh, let's lay in bed for a little bit, or let's have breakfast a little bit later, lunch a little bit later. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, quote unquote. Right, Dezi? And it just doesn't work out that way for me because I've been doing this for a year, and I even have a schedule next to me when I have things that help me get through the day. Like, what are those tasks I need to get done?
Yeah. And so what are the recommendations? Some of you guys, anybody can kind of join in and chime in here. But what would you tell somebody, again, that right now it's switching into that environment, being at home, being surrounded either by family, you know, what are some like the ways that you have learned, you know, again, you talked about structure, you talked about like creating a schedule. So I've been telling a lot of my clients, like, you know, try to come up with an organized schedule, like, you know, create time blocks for, you know, okay, like this is the time you're going to eat. This is the time that you're going to snack or things like that. So what are some of the ways that you guys like teach it to your clients or even apply it to yourselves?
I'll go ahead and chime in on this. So I did recently leave my job. So I was actually talking to Dezi about this yesterday. I feel like I have so much more time on my hands. And so I'm having to, really start creating that structure. And one thing that I think I've actually talked with a client about this previously was setting healthy boundaries with family and things like that. Because I think, especially for me, with my wife not being in school, now me being home more often, now, because we never had that time before. So trying to really like set healthy boundaries, kind of like Tony was saying, setting time to have dinner together and things like that. But really just being transparent for me. And that's something that I tell my clients as well that are now working from home. Because now you're home, husband or wife is home, kids are home, everybody wants your attention. So it's really important to really set those healthy boundaries.
Yeah, and we don't even know how long this is going to last. That's the thing. You keep reading the news. It's like apparently, and I don't like to consume so much news and content like that. But it's supposedly it's not gonna. It's unless they lock the whole entire country down, it's not gonna get any better. And we haven't seen the big of it yet. So it's kind of scary, I guess. From that perspective. So I guess we had to kind of get used to do this for God knows how long, right? What about you, Dezi?
Man, I think big takeaway, and Nate, I love what you said there, communicating with my wife, and for a lot of our listeners too, communicating with your significant other or people you're sharing your home with. I mean, for my wife and I, we started, I was the dietitian and she was the eating disorder therapist. And so, at a high level, at a high level type of care. And so we were around a lot of trauma. We were around a lot of things when we first started dating and sort of developing our relationship, where we had to be very communicative. We had to just check in with each other. So I was kind of talking with her the other day. I was like, the the way that we introduced ourselves, the way that we sort of developed our relationship was really hard because we were dealing a lot with suicide and some other things, but like we work really well in trauma together. And it's not to say that you all need to go through trauma with your significant other to communicate, yet at the same time, there is some power in just checking in with your significant other. Like, Nate, healthy boundaries. I love that, man, because, and the other thing with this too, is you're not going to do this perfect. I mean,
right.
What we have been doing is sort of past 2 p.m., I'm a dad. So yesterday my wife was home all day, no work. So I ended up doing like an 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. shift. And I didn't even mean to, because I just filled the time with phone calls and stuff like that to collaborate with people. And so afterwards, I was accountable for it. I was like, hey, today was not a success for me. I'm sorry. Like, what do you need? Thank you so much for being an amazing wife and mother. And so I think communication is a huge thing. And also sending a lot of gratitudes to the people you're sharing your home with, because we're all going through this together. And when you see that other person doing something that you really admire, say something, because that in itself creates that healthy communication between the two of you where you can get through this together. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'm learning right now, where one, I got to be imperfect about it. And two, if I am imperfect about it, I also need to work towards being accountable for it.
Yeah. I do think like also kind of creating some like alone time, especially if you're, for us here, we're fortunate enough that we have a house that have like, multiple rooms, but there are people that, for example, may live in like a 1-bedroom apartment. We used to live in a 1-bedroom apartment, and we're thinking like, wow, like, I don't know how things would have been if that would have been the case, but I'm sure people listening to this, so probably may be living in situations like that. There's people in New York that live in a studio apartment. So how are they handling that kind of situation? But yeah, it's like Nate, you're saying like
in Boston, I was in a studio, and so that was the toughest thing is that when all this was going down, I started working from home. I mean, I was in a 700 square foot studio apartment. So it was like when I was on client calls, I had to like tell my wife like, hey, she would be packing or something. So I had to say, hey, I'm going to do this, this call right now. But yeah, no, I mean, it was great understanding on her part. She understands kind of the work that I do and how I need to be fully present. So, she got it. But yeah, no, I lived it, and it's definitely challenging. Yeah.
Well, but maybe sometimes even like going on a walk, keeping your six foot distance, like, away from people, but, going on a walk and like, maybe like taking some time to like really like, cause I think that's the best way to, for us, obviously I just close my door. This is my home office. So obviously she works on her stuff. I work on mine, and we kind of like do this for like a few hours at a time. And then we come and spend some time together, and then we go back into the thing. So it's kind of like, this is our office. So that's kind of like the way that we sort of like, do it. So especially around this time where, we're switching literally our lifestyles, like our lives are completely changing, or at least those of us that, or some of the people that are working in office settings, and now they're like being stuck at home by force, not because they wanted to. Right. So, but how can we reframe this though? Because I think a lot of times, like, and you, Nate, we're talking about, you did a live on like the silver linings of COVID-19. So I guess like, what are some of the positives that we can maybe kind of reframe this entire situation right now, in your opinion? I don't know, like who wants to kind of chime in and start this conversation?
I'll wait till the end.
I didn't say anything.
Dude, I think there's a lot of opportunity here, and we were talking.
Hold on, Dezi. Could you wait? I was going to talk. I'm kidding. Sorry.
So, Tony, would you like to say something?
Raise your hand.
Talk to you. Yeah, let me talk to you like I talk to my 4-year-old. Tony, use your words.
I'm trying, but you won't let me.
No, man, I think that there's a lot of opportunity here. I mean, I'm doing a lot of reading on what happened during quarantines in the past and who really resurfaced from these opportunities. And I think that it's a really beautiful time, because a lot of what we hear, whether it's working with clients or other people, is that time is this huge barrier. Well, guess what? You have the time. What are you going to do with it? And so what I've been really encouraging a lot of my clients outside of just nutrition is to say, hey, fulfillment has to be a part of this process, because if you crush all these body comp goals and you feel great, but you don't enjoy the work that you're doing, or you don't feel fulfilled in what you're doing, there's something wrong there. So I think the silver lining behind this, and a lot of what I'm just learning personally, is to say there's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of things that we can begin to do and begin to structure and begin to just brainstorm and just have stupid ideas that might become something, right? So I think for me, that's just something that I'm continually learning and teaching a lot of my clients right now.
That's good.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, just to bouncing off of what you're saying, Dezi, is I think now we have a lot more time. So utilizing that time for something productive. So if that's reconnecting with, family, your kids, things like that, that's one thing. If you have this like lingering hobby that you've been wanting to act on, and it's been an issue, now's the time to do that. If you've had this entrepreneurial itch to like go out and do something and put your passion out there for others to benefit from, now's the time to do it. So really looking at it from like the gift of time and utilizing that to something to do something positive with it. So yeah, man, I mean, totally agree with that.
I guess I'll go now. Thanks, guys. So, in all honesty, I had a friend. I have a friend, not had. He's still around. Him and his wife just found out that they're pregnant, and he lost his job. His wife works in the restaurant business, so she's not getting any income. They actually went to Paris 2 weeks ago, and they had to come back after 3 days because of the coronavirus. And he came back. He's like, look, I know right now I won't be able to get jobs. He's an engineer. So I told him, what do you like to do? What have you been doing? And creatively, because being an engineer, he wants to work in aerospace. He has a 3D printer at home. He started to create masks, which is a great invention, and start selling it on Etsy, right? Like, people, let's be creative. If you don't have a job right now, what can you do that people can invest in? I think this is such a great time to be creative with what we have. I get it. If you've lost your job, I think you should take the day, maybe take a couple of days, but don't take any longer than that. What is something you've been wanting to work on? What is something that's going to make you better? What is something that you can do to help provide value to people? And how can you do it today? And it doesn't have to be you creating a whole multi-million-dollar business overnight, but what is one thing you can do to provide value to one person? And then how you can multiply that. So use your creativity, because in these times where we're now at home and we can't do much else, start something that will help you and your family in the long run.
Yeah, that's huge. That's crazy.
That's amazing.
Like, creating a mask like with a 3D printer. That's talk about opportunity there. But I think I posted about this yesterday. Like, I think in this entire like pandemic crisis, we have two choices. You can choose to be the negative Nancy that complains about being bored at home. All you do is obviously consume an exuberant amount of content, read the news, and get see how the world is like just going to end according to your standards. Or you can obviously choose to be the optimistic person, the person that kind of reframes this entire situation and sees this as an opportunity to focus on the things that you haven't focused in a long time. Spending time. I talked about it yesterday. Like, literally, when is the last time you call like family members that you haven't talked to in like the longest time? Because you always talk about you don't have time because work is consuming you. And for some for some people, it's like they lost their job. For other people, they're working from home. So I guess like it depends on the situation, but regardless, like you are buying yourself time that you didn't have before to focus on things that matter right now. And I think that's a part of it that I see as, as a positive. And again, looking at opportunities, like again, for like, people that want to be an entrepreneur and wanted to start a business, there's no better time to do it than this time, because then you have you can start cooking it right now. And when this is all over, then you'll come back. You'll come out not only with possibly having a job opportunity back or something like that if you go back to your job, but also at the same time maybe having a side business that you're working on, or maybe you created an art piece because you're an artist and you haven't had time to paint. Things like that. So yeah, so that's huge. What about like health wise? Like how are you guys approaching the situation from like the health and nutrition standpoint? And what do you be telling people? As dietitians here, as like dietitians here in this group, in this chit chat, what is like some of like the biggest conversations you've been having around nutrition in this time? Antonio, you can go first.
Wow. Thank you. I appreciate you, Andres. Thank you so much. Wow.
Well, you positive reinforcement. Right in the face so bad.
Reinforcement. You have to do positive reinforcement so he does it again. It's not just a one-off, right? So some things that I've really been working on nutrition-wise is definitely getting out. So a lot of my clients did a lot of transportation. So that means they used to transit to and from work. That could last up to 3 hours. Now they have 3 extra hours in their day to do some sort of physical activity and some sort of meal prep. Because some of them are like, I don't have time to meal prep. So I'm someone that's not saying that you have to meal prep for the whole week, but do it for a couple days so they don't have to worry about lunch. Because when you are in the middle of your day, a lot of my clients will be like, I don't have time to cook. Okay, well, you have these 3 hours in the beginning and the end of your day. Can you cook something to last you throughout the day so you're not spending an hour cooking lunch? You just do it during that breakfast time so you have the next 3 days prepped for that. And then other times, even if it's just going for a walk, like you said, so nutrition-wise, it's that meal prep, then like physical fitness-wise, going out and doing something. And then, as you know, my favorite is hydrate or dihydrate. A lot of people forget to drink water at home because at their office, they have a water cooler they get up to. At the office, they have their water bottle they use. At the office, they have that cup they use. And I get on a call. I'm like, how have you been this week? They actually are like, I feel more tired, more fatigued. And I'm like, how's your water intake been? I forgot. I left my water bottle at work and they shut us down. Or I don't have a cup. I don't know how to measure it. So getting them back into that hydration routine, I think, is a super simple way, and some things I've worked on with my clients.
Yeah, because I think they break their routine. So when they break their routines, obviously kind of changes the way that they kind of carry themselves on throughout the day. So they're just not doing the things that they're just always adjusted to. And that's the thing. You got to embrace a change, and you got to make sure that you make the right adjustments to make sure that it mimics in a positive way, obviously, what you were doing before. So I think that's pretty valuable.
Something that I've been kind of really honing in with my clients now, and just people that I'm talking to, is now that things have kind of tended to slow down, now more than ever is a great time to start building habits and focusing on your exercise and your nutrition. The one thing that I've kind of been seeing coming up is people wanting to actually now start their morning routine. And so what I tell people is like, take these 2 weeks, to a month to 2 months to really establish something that you're going to be happy with in terms of like a morning routine, or if it's behaviors in terms of your nutrition or your exercise. And then that way it becomes a habit over these next couple of months. And then that way, when you go back to work, you can then adapt it around what your new norm is. And just really just understand what it feels like to have a morning routine and what it feels like to consistently, get to the gym and not let time be the limiting factor. And so I'm really just focusing on the behaviors that you're really wanting to hone in on and create those habits around those. So then that way, when you go back to work, it's now going to feel like you're naked when you don't do those tasks. So it really kind of just putting that connection between behavior and just the feelings of doing that said behavior.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, man, I would echo everything that you guys are talking about. I think one of the coolest moments last week, obviously when it all hit, I did a group call with my clients and I was joking with them. I had such a proud coach moment where, I checked in with them and, the whole premise of the talk was going to be like, how to crush your food quarantine, right? They all went shopping for things that we had talked about all collectively. And they sort of presented like, hey, man, we don't have any issues. Like we were prepared, like we're good. And it was such a cool moment because we've all had individual conversations. We've all had different type of content pieces that people have consumed in the program. And so I had such a proud coaching moment where it's like, all right, cool, man. Like these, like all of my guys and my gals are doing really well with this. The other thing, and I want to echo Nate a little bit here too, that I'm finding, having been working remote for the past 6 months to 9 months, primarily a lot of people who were either going to work or traveling to work or things like that, their schedule is flip-flopped. So a lot of what we were trying to do is establish that morning routine. So Nate, I love that, man. And I'm a big 5-minute journal guy. So this is something that I've been able to help people implement. Again, just seeking fulfillment and seeking gratitude during this time. And it's actually been one of the coolest things because they are checking in with that and they are talking a bit more about the situation in a more positive light. Because I think that we've probably all been subject to it at some point. Like when you're consuming content or watching the news, all of a sudden you start freaking the F out. Like, oh my God, the world's going to end. Yet at the same time, the really glorious thing about Instagram or Facebook is that unfollow button. My Lord, like I have gotten so much happiness from just like unfollow in the same way that we would if we were in a circle of people and they were just talking negatively. Like I would just Homer Simpson them like like I don't want to hear, right? Like into the bushes. Like I don't want to hear this.
So that leads obviously to like the topic of like smart content consumption. Mm-hmm. And I think like, because obviously if there's anybody benefiting from this entire COVID-19 is definitely Mark Zuckerberg and big time. It's crazy. I think Jiva told me yesterday, she read in an article that Facebook's traffic in the past month has been it's been higher than the entire 2019 year alone. Like insane. So imagine obviously like Facebook ads and all kinds of stuff like that, because it's clear, like obviously like, you know what would be like the end of the world if internet would stop working right now. that would be a disaster. But obviously kind of like there's so much people putting out content right now, and there's so much like from like the news outlets to like now I feel like there's at least like 20 live feeds on my Instagram every single night. So it's positive, obviously, from us as content creators and influencers, the people that are trying to kind of help others. But how do you kind of establish a limitation on this? Because we can be lost in content consumption, whether it's good or bad, for hours throughout the day. Is there a limit, or at what point do we kind of stop being productive by just simply consuming too much information at this moment? Like, what are some of like the strategies that maybe the audience can benefit from, and maybe that you're applying to yourself? Because I can tell you, I have been lost like for like an hour, like scrolling on Facebook, reading news, watching, what Trump said, or watching what this person said or whatever. So like, how are some of the strategies that you cope with this, and that you try to like, for you to establish like limitations, or I guess like, boundaries around that? Anybody?
I've been using time limits on my apps. So I go to certain apps that I know I will scroll and not be productive on. So I put a time limit. So on my phone, it'll actually come up, be like, your time limit has been used. So especially TikTok, I could get lost on that for hours. I have a 15-minute timer on it, and I could literally lay in bed with my wife, and after 15 minutes, the timer goes on. We look at each other like, did we just use 15 minutes of our life watching TikTok? All right, let's do another 15 minutes. And then a half hour goes by, and then we're like, all right, now we have to get up and have breakfast, right? So we know our limits. We kind of push our boundaries, but putting that time limit allows us to kind of self-reflect in that moment, like, holy smokes, is this too much time consuming this kind of media? Is this going to help us with our goals? If it's a time for us to be with each other, is using TikTok that moment of being with each other, or is it putting our phones away and actually talking with each other? How was our day? Right? So putting a limit on certain apps that you know that you are going to be using more often, definitely putting a limit on that. That's what I found to be very helpful for myself.
Is that under settings on the phone? Like it's like you go on like is it like an iPhone?
Yes,
yeah, I'm pretty sure you can go to settings and set time limits. And also
app limits. Yeah, under like screen time. If you type in screen time under settings, you can go in there and set like app limits. Yeah, I need to do that. So,
you're welcome, Andres. See, I have more.
No, I do remember I saw that when we took that drive to that dairy farm, and I remember, but I never did it. So like, but then literally you can pick whatever social networking, and like you can pick whichever you want to do. So that's
the problem with social networking, Andres, at least for me, is that it includes WhatsApp on that. So like I have family on there, so sometimes I don't get a phone call on WhatsApp. So that's why I pick certain apps, because it does choose WhatsApp as a social media app, but I don't use it as a social media consumption.
Got it. Okay, good. Cool. But that's a pretty good tip. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say, with that, like setting those limits is super important, because I work with a lot of females, and there could be a lot of negativity that comes from social media, not in terms of like comments, but in how they view themselves. There's studies that show the increased amount of time on Facebook or any social media platform results into kind of more self-negative talk, because you end up comparing yourself. You end up sitting there and kind of just getting into your feelings and starting comparing yourself to a bunch of different, Instagram people, friends, families, things like that, because now more than ever, people are posting a lot more of what's going on in their lives. So I think it's just super important to set those healthy limits. But then also, like Dezi was saying, make sure you're following content that's adding value to you and it's not taking anything away. And really just, use that unfollow button just as much as you use the follow button. And just really just set those healthy boundaries around your time on social media, because again, it could take you down a path where you feel some type of way. You may feel insignificant compared to what you're looking at, and that's never a healthy thing. So definitely setting those time limits and really making sure that you're following the right context. I think now it's great that people are doing workouts. Like I know, Andres, you have a bunch of workouts that you've been posting, and like that's great. That's the content we need to be consuming. Things that are going to uplift us. Things that are going to produce a positive result, a positive ROI when it comes to our mental health, our physical health overall.
Yeah, I think it's like not let content amplify anxiety. And like, you know, I think somebody was saying yesterday that, you know, one of the big drivers of like, you know, motivation in humans is definitely stress. But then when stress is not well channeled, obviously, and it's amplified, and obviously that's something that we need to ask, you know, we need to ask ourselves, is this actually contributing to me to move in the right direction, or is it actually making the whole thing actually making it worse? Like even for people like, you know, like, you know, watching all these people doing home workouts and they're just sitting in there like, I don't want to do that. You know, okay, then stop consuming that kind of content. Like, you know, you need to do it, but then you don't. So maybe this is making things worse for you. So a lot of times, like, it really depends on the situation, but I think it's important for you to do like a self-check. Like, hey, is this helping me, or this is actually making things worse right now? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing that I would add here as well is obviously the unfollow button has been the greatest thing, at least for me. And time for reflection, you know, each and every, especially with this 5-minute journal, there's a portion there towards right before you're going to bed, you're sort of evaluating your day and reflecting on your day. You know, there have been times over the past week, you know, 7 to 10 days where I've had days where I'm like, hey, I felt really good. I felt really fulfilled by what I consume. And then other days where I'm like, yeah, I didn't really enjoy that. So it's kind of recalibrating that day. I mean, there was a night the other night where one of the DJs here in Arizona did like a live feed. And I just like danced my face off to 90s music. And that was like one of the most fulfilling things. And I was like, you know what? I kind of want to chase that. So if I'm going to get lost in content, I want to do it in a way that's going to be fulfilling for me. So it's really just echoing you guys and just taking that time to reflect and say like, okay, are these conversations, is what I'm consuming things that are filling my cup, or is it literally reaching into it?
Yeah, that's huge. Well, and speaking of content now, like going on the tangent of nutrition specifics, I don't know if you guys have run into this, but I've been running into a lot of quick fixes for COVID-19. And like memes and all kinds of crazy things like that, from like, you know, you can wash down the virus with water and lemon and it's going to digest.
Or a blow dryer. I saw that the other day.
Yes, I saw that.
It's going to digest in your digestive juices, so the virus is going to automatically be killed if you get it, from things like supplements that you can take to like prevent the virus from happening and all kinds of stuff like that. So I guess like, what are some of the craziest things you've heard, and then what are your thoughts on that? What's a blow dryer thing?
Dude, you got to watch it. I'll send it to you. I don't know if it was during a congressional session or what, but they're like, because of the amount of heat, it talked about getting to up to 130 degrees. And the meme was like, how do you do that? And the person kept talking about like, well, you have to get a blow dryer. So it just showed people just getting a blow dryer in their mouth and their nose.
And that's the cure.
And that's the cure. But I think the level of
ignorance.
Ignorance and stupidity. I'm just going to say that. Okay. Is astounding to me. You know, everyone has this cure, and God, you know, far be it from us to say like, hey, this is where preparation comes into play. This is where recovery comes into play. And no one wants to hear that. No one wants to hear that. It's like, no. I want this done right now in the next 7 days. It's like, well, too freaking bad. So go suck down your vitamin C juice your blow dryer. Yeah.
What's that? Is that a new vitamin that just came out for the coronavirus that cures it all?
Yeah, man. You
vitamin
haven't
G.
seen it?
No.
Type code Dezi10 to get 10% off.
There you go.
Vitamin Dietitian, made by all the dietitians on this podcast and approved. But use my code, Tony10.
It's going to help you fight the COVID-19. Guarantee.
Yep. Vitamin G.
That's awesome. No, but I hear all this stuff all the time. But at the same time, there are like legit like health professionals, like, well, quote unquote, that are pushing for, I think I heard this guy talking about elderberry, talking about like, you know, specific supplements that may have some, you know, data or research to support antioxidant benefits or immune support. But, you know, I guess like, you know, should we be running to Amazon to buy some of this stuff, which by the way, like, I don't think you'll be able to get anything from Amazon until like the end of April because of the you can only get essential things right now. But how are you going about this? And I know, Antonio, you're are one of our supplement experts. So how are you dealing with, is there anything from the supplement standpoint that have research to support either helping the immune system or actually fight a virus?
So coronavirus just got found out a couple months ago. There is zero research on it right now because it literally just came out. No one expected this. This came out of nowhere. So at the moment, there is nothing, right? Now, what can help with viral infections or things like vitamin D? It's actually been shown to help. But is it going to help with the coronavirus? We don't know. So I can't say here's a list of supplements that will help because we just don't know. So it'd be ill practice of us to say here's what will help. Now, if you do have an onset of cold symptoms, we know vitamin C will help if you have onset of these symptoms. It won't prevent it. So don't take it beforehand thinking oh, I love taking emergency and now I'm going to be super healthy. I'm not going to get coronavirus. That is incorrect, right? Some things that will help, and I'm sure we all agree with this, more fruits and vegetables, getting actual vitamin C from the fruits and vegetables, minerals. No need to go on Amazon unless you're going on Amazon Fresh and getting groceries. Then yes, plus on that. But don't go out spending your money on supplements. It's not going to work and it's not going to help. What's going to help is you actually maintaining your distance from people and eating more fruits and vegetables, more whole grains, and more lean proteins, what we typically preach to our clients, right? So elderberry, toss it out the door. That ain't going to do nothing. Any apple cider vinegar gummy, toss it out the window, ain't going to do nothing.
Ew.
I mean, Andres and I, we both take vitamin D. Nate takes vitamin D. Dezi, do you take vitamin D? All of us do. So we just take it already. So we're not doing it because of the coronavirus. We got our vitamin D levels checked, so we know how much we need to supplement with, right? None of us are taking any vitamin C mega doses right now because none of us are getting sick. We are healthy individuals, right? So is there any supplement out there I would suggest? Yeah, hiring a dietitian so they can supplement your diet and tell you what to do. That's what you need to do. Not freaking go talk to Booty Bounce Joe and figure out her elixir of elderberry, ginger, turmeric bullshit. Sorry. But no, that's not what you need. It's not going to help. At this moment, we don't have the research for that. When that comes out in about 5 years, then I'll give you an opinion. But right now, there is nothing.
Boom.
There it is.
Sorry.
End episode after that.
All right. So I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, I use Examine a lot, and they have a pretty good, research kind of review on all these different things. And they said, anything that has strong research on fighting viruses, not this specific one, is going to be things vitamin C, not ultra dosing. You can definitely supplement with lower dosages, but it's just essentially just as a way to strengthen your immune response, not to fight a virus. And then I think you talked about vitamin D, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And I think they also talk about oral zinc. I don't know how to say this word, lozenges. Yeah. So I'm guessing they're candy or the kind of things that kind of help you obviously kind of get that. There is some stuff on there for viruses and being able to kind of fight it off in the back of your throat or something like this. But again, this is just sort of, should you do it? Those are the three things that I saw in there that had some stronger research, but the rest of it literally read weak research. There's nothing. There's one study on elderberry. There's one study on quercetin. There's so it's really difficult. And like Antonio was saying, this COVID-19 coronavirus or this specific strand, this specific one, we don't know anything about it yet. Literally, people were saying oh, it's only affecting older people and immunocompromised people. There's somebody under 18 that died yesterday. So it's not to alarm anybody, but we don't know anything yet. And we had to take measurements, and we had to take measures to make sure that that we're actually doing all the right things, from this perspective. So ditch the supplements, increase fruit and vegetables. What else can we do? Anything else? Anybody? Sleep.
Focus on sleep.
Nate, what about sleep?
Man, yeah, focus on the sleep and stress management. Now, again, going back to you having time and things kind of slowing down, right now is a great time to focus on those two aspects, your sleep and your stress management. So, right now, big thing that I'm doing with a lot of clients is right now, this is like their main thing, is they want to focus more on sleep, getting better sleep quality, as well as managing that stress. So obviously, we can go down the whole lane of improving sleep quality, of, creating a regimen, making your environment conducive to proper sleep, things like that. But really, I think a big one is that stress management, and really getting that under control. Because, some people may just be going about their days without any stress, but a lot of people, this is a huge deal for them. And so, we call stress the silent killer for a reason, because it does have an impact on your overall health and wellness, your immunity, things like that. So those are kind of my two big ones that I've been really focusing with clients right now is sleep and stress management.
I think because of the fact that people are at home a lot more, and some of them don't have work, their sleep actually is being disrupted, mainly because they're binging on shows and things like that. It's happened to a couple of people that I've talked to, and even and I'm not gonna lie, even it's happened to ourselves. Like, we had like a rule of like no TV until like Friday, or we just try to limit it to a certain extent, and we have been kind of breaking that rule. Or like some of the people that we've been talking to, they're just like staying up late watching like shows because they don't have to be at work, or they don't have to wake up at 6 to commute and be at work. So now I'll have to work, they had to just wake up at like 8 or whatever. So that is affecting not only sleep quality, it's increasing the amount of exposure to like blue light, and like it's just like a cascade of reactions that are conducive to affecting your sleep. Sleep deprivation is leading to an immunocompromised system. So again, like it's just kind of creating the perfect storm for you to not respond well to viruses, to infections, and things like that. So even when you're just sitting at home, so those are things that definitely we can certainly start to work on in creating habits around that. So anything else to add on that end?
No, man, I think the only thing that I would add there is kind of piggybacking off of what you guys are talking about is the stress management piece. I can't say enough about my meditation practice. I can't say enough, at least over the last 10 days, of what getting outside and just taking, either client calls during a walk, or just really getting outside and getting some sun. It's beautiful here in Arizona right now. This is typically when people come out because it's not as cold comparably to other places. Yet at the same time, I can't say enough about, like I said, my meditation practice and the importance of just self-reflection and taking that time for yourself.
Nice. Yeah. So I think this is a good point to like maybe for us to pivot and end this conversation. I think for everybody listening to this, we're going through rough times, but we had to learn to see the positive. If there's anything that, I think the main takeaway from this conversation, this Chit Chat series, is that we're going to get through it, and we may be able to get through it in a super huge positive way if we learn how to reframe this entire or current situation, because we're just starting it. We haven't seen all of it yet, and we just need to make sure that we're kind of taking the right path or the right approach to make sure that this is something that can be beneficial for us all, instead of like, getting into that negative mindset and then just being worried all the time because of like, there's people already kind of telling me, well, the recession and like the down markets and all that kind of stuff, that shit hasn't happened yet. And if it does, sure, you need to prepare, but you need to live in the present, and you cannot live in the future where things that you cannot control, or like literally be worrying about things like my mom couldn't sleep last night because of her company and all these different things. And I'm like, can you control can you control that? You can't. So why sleep over, or why do sleep over it? You need to kind of let go of the things that are outside of your or your spheres of control, and start to worry more about how you can respond to that. So definitely, that's a huge thing.
100%.
Well, my dudes, it's been awesome. The good news is that we're going to be doing this recurrently. So for people listening to this, if you want to listen to this beautiful voices on a weekly basis or a bi-weekly basis, definitely tune in into VV Nutrition Radio. And of course, on the show notes, you're going to find how you can definitely reach out directly to Dezi, to Nate, and to Antonio, so you can kind of have conversations with them. They'll have their own specialties, and definitely you would benefit a lot from chatting with them. So thank you guys again for your time here today. See you guys next week. Hey, thank you so much for listening to another episode of VV Nutrition Radio. I wanted to ask you a quick favor. If you enjoyed this episode or if you're enjoying the podcast altogether, make sure you subscribe and leave us a review so we increase our visibility and we continue to reach more people and change their lifestyle through nutrition, performance, fitness, and health. Thank you guys so much, and I'll see you guys on the next one.